Captured by Women is brought to you by Yum Vita, a delicious way to grow.
Well, it's the first Saturday of the month of August in the year 2018, and we are excited to come your way with your favorite Saturday show, Captured by Women. Of course, it's me and Petra in studio today, and we plan to make it very exciting for you. We'll start off with some NDC matters and the fact that 94 MPs have rallied behind former President John Mahama, and also there has been some allegations concerning coercion to sign a form where people say, whether it was an attendance sheet or not, we're yet to find out. But also we'll be talking about Bank of Ghana and the fact that they have formed Consolidated Bank Ghana Limited, which is absorbing 5 banks that were ailing. We'll find out exactly what that means and what the future holds for the financial sector in Ghana. We'll also touch on the Ameri deal, the brouhaha surrounding it, and what it means moving forward. Does it mean just to renegotiate, novate, whatever other semantics? We'll try and get deep into that. Then lifestyle will touch on a very interesting topic, so you don't want to miss. And then finally, in Career Woman, we'll be talking to a very accomplished woman who has gone through many fields and has settled in a field that she feels very comfortable and is doing very well there. We'll find out how she rose through the ranks to get where she is. Of course, we are proudly sponsored by Yum Vita, a delicious way to grow, and GTP for giving us a beautiful piece of cloth to adorn ourselves today. Of course, this show promises to be very exciting right from beginning to the end, so you don't want to change the station. Stick and stay with us. We'll be right back after this break. Well, the presidential bid for a flag bearer for the NDC is still ongoing, and there have been some concerns about coercion and the like. We'll find out whether this is true and what our takes are. Petra, I mean, for me, what is interesting is the fact that former President Mahama has been at the forefront before, where he's come out to become president. And so, like the saying goes, why would you want to change a winning team if everyone thinks he was good enough to have won the presidential election, gone for president up till now? I think it would have been obvious that he probably will get the nod. But now we're hearing people are being coerced to sign a form. Some even don't know what the form was. They thought it was attendance sheet, and that's even more worrying. But I won't touch on that just yet. What's your take on this whole NDC
let's
issue?
talk about that.
No. Please, he said he was told, or he thought it was an attendance sheet being passed on the floor of Parliament. And so he signed. He was there, President say.
We should be very worried. We should be very worried. But you think we shouldn't talk about that?
That would be another discussion.
Well, I really don't see what the big deal is. Right. I mean, if former President Mahama wants to put up himself for to be nominated as presidential candidate, it's all well and good. Right. But I feel that it's important that there's competition. I don't believe that if he's been president before, the party should just automatically allow him to run again unopposed. Right. It's good for our democracy that there's competition internally in the party and externally in the nation as well. So being a student of political science, I'll just say it's a good thing. Everyone in the party should be given a fair opportunity. I'm just not sure why they would need the parliamentarians to endorse him at this point. It's important that everyone is giving a fair opportunity to stand. And if former President Mahama is the best candidate, the delegates will speak. Except that, you know how we say fear delegates, we can't be too sure what they would do. So maybe that's why they're starting
seem to
early.
want a support system.
Yes, but I really think it's okay. It's all the 4 other gentlemen who've indicated their willingness to put up themselves. Right. I feel they're capable enough, and it's good. Competition is good for democracy. So we should have options. The party should have options. Ghanaians should have options. We should never get the point where we say that one person has done well
and it's enough.
Or that's it. We don't have a choice. It's why we had challenges understanding why our very good first president, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, decided to have a one-party state. So we don't ever want to get the point where we don't have choices. Right. Democracy thrives on multiple choices. So intra-party democracy, national democracy, we should have options.
I guess, I mean, that's really true. But the point also is the fear of how when these things denigrate, it also disintegrates the unity of the party. And oftentimes we've seen when people are in minority or on the opposition, they tend to have all these issues come up the more. And so at this particular point, I'm not looking forward to having so much, dissension amongst the party members. It's okay to have your options. I mean, if I'm for person A, person B, doesn't necessarily mean I'm not a party member.
Yeah.
It just means that I would want to see the other person also bring his ideas to the forefront and see if he can change any dynamics. And I think the competition is very important because you don't want a situation where President Mahama former President Mahama haven't become president before things all is well and good, but also to have the idea where he feels people would still want him out of that position just because other people have other ideas or other people have other ideals they want to bring to book, and that's fine. I mean, it's a fair deal. Let everyone come forth. People would elect who they think is the best choice for the party, and then our democracy can continue. But anyway,
I don't think we should be too worried about intra-party factions and things like that. It actually helps. I think up to the run-up of the elections when President Mills became president, there were serious issues in the NDC, but they braced it. When our current president was coming into the election, there were also serious issues in the NPP, but they braced them. It's just how political parties work. I think the important thing is political party members must realize that they have a common goal. And the common goal is they want to get out of opposition. So really, if at any point they decide they want to have issues, they should just remember that they want to get out of opposition or they're trying to stay in power, whichever way. And so how they go about that, I think is all well and good. At the end of the day, water will find its level and they'll have a candidate.
But as for the people who signed the attendance sheet, we'll come back to your issue next time. But anyway, that's what we have to say on The Spin. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome to Big Bang. One of the biggest conversations that we've had in the last few years has been the one around energy. Electricity in particular is very, very important to us as a nation, and I'm sure all citizens want to know what's going on. One of the discussions that we've had this week has been the one around AMERI. So what exactly is the AMERI agreement? What's in it for us as citizens, and why should we be concerned? To help us understand this today, we have in studio with us Mr. Kwame Jantua, who is an energy expert, and he's going to do us the honors of explaining the very, very basic things that we need to know and what we need to be asking our MPs and our leaders. Thank you very much for joining us, sir.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And how are you?
We're very well, thank you. How are you yourself?
I'm very, very fine.
Okay. There's been the conversation around AMERI. It didn't start this week. It started a while back. Before the NPP came into power, there's been conversations around this. So just generally tell us, what is it in it for us, and what should we be concerned about?
I reckon what is in it for us has got to do with not having Dumso come back.
Right.
That's the first point of call. The AMERI project is based on the production of electricity. And so if you look around the world today, electricity is king, electricity is power. Without electricity, not a lot can be done. It actually stunts the development of a country. So it is key. Now, AMERI came into focus when we started experiencing brownouts, when the lights were going off, and the government at the time needed to do something quickly. So they decided to bring in emergency power barges. And one of the ones they brought in was AMERI. And hence they have come to stay. It was supposed to be build, operate, and transfer project. And it was supposed to have come into being within 90 days. But there's so many delays that couldn't happen. Now, the current situation with this whole AMERI kerfuffle predicates on the committee that was set up by the Minister of Energy when this new government came in. And permit me to go through my notes. What was it that made them feel that they needed to set up this committee? it was set up 17-member committee. And some of the things that they were supposed to look at, the committee was supposed to review the agreement based on its technical, financial, and legal merits or demerits, and identify issues that should form the basis for a renegotiation of the BOOT agreement. The plant was operational anyway when they started, and hence they needed to make sure that they rectified any anomalies in the boat agreement. And the committee also had to look at the fact that Ameri gave a certain price to government, 510.
Right.
And it was seconded from another company, which this government felt they had shortchanged us because they felt they could have done it. The company charged Ameri 360 million. So there's 150 million that they felt there was some fraud to do with it. So it was predicated on the conclusions of the committee.
The current government had this, committee set up, and they offered that we renegotiate. However, in going into this, what the minority seems to churn out is the fact that government didn't really renegotiate to help Ghanaians, but rather also equally went into an agreement that will shortchange Ghanaians for value for money. Is this really the case from how you understand it?
Well, I can only talk on the basis of the tariffs.
Okay.
Because it's the tariffs that the ordinary Ghanaian would have to pay based on the tariffs that we've got. From what I understand, the tariffs, and I'll juxtapose it against what the current contract is. The tariff is supposed to be 14 cents for the 5-year period. When you look at the tariff for the 15-year period, it's supposed to be 11 cents. What the minority is saying is that after the 5-year period, the tariff would have come lower than the 11 cent tariff that was for 15 years. And they calculated that it could come as low as 10.49 cents. So if after 4 years, or after 5 years, the barge would become Ghana's property. So far we have paid nearly half. We would have finished paying in the next 2 years. After this duration, the tariff will come down to 10.49. Why the New Deal? And when you also look at it, we were supposed to pay $72 million to Ameri, whether we used it or we didn't use it. With this new one over 15 years, we are paying $75 million for 15 years. Hence the 1.12 billion that is circulating around. So the opposition is saying, with all this, we need further and better particulars. And these further and better particulars should be linked to the other stakeholders, PURC, Energy Commission, all these others. We want to see the consultations that went on before you got to the stage you got into. And that is where it was stuck in Parliament.
If government actually called on you to find out what the best agreement between Ghana and Ameri was to be, what would you propose?
Well, as to what I will propose between the two, I want a tariff that Ghanaians can pay. I want a situation where we have electricity. I also want a situation where the people we have brought in would have a good relationship with our government and Ghanaians. For me, that is key. Nobody needs to be shortchanged in the transaction. Ghana doesn't need to be shortchanged, nor the producers of the electricity need to be shortchanged. And so I would want that situation. Your second question was?
Whether Ameri should stay. in the first place? Do we still need a power plant?
If Ameri goes down today, we are back into doom so.
Right.
Yeah.
So that answers your question. Now, there are other power plants that are also coming in by 2020, 2021, 2022 that are more efficient than Ameri. And the argument is being made that if these new power plants coming in are more efficient than Ameri, why the 15 years?
Right.
Why the 15 years? Probably government has looked at it, and we hear on the news that the Flagstaff House, you call it Jubilee House, I call it Flagstaff House, have decided that when Parliament, they have now recessed.
Right.
When they come back in October, they would make an application to the Speaker to withdraw the proposal.
Right.
Now, I don't know what is going to happen after they withdraw it. For me, it's my own personal opinion, let's let this thing run its course, the 5 years, because it reverts to us. Then we can handle it and do what we want to do with it.
Well, so on that very well thought out conversation, I think it's obvious that we need to begin to plan long term for national development, and we hope that everyone in the position of power to make the right decisions for us will do so. We're going to keep our eyes on this deal because everyone is involved and we're all impacted in one way or the other. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for
and we
having
definitely
me.
will continue this conversation sometime soon. We'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll go on with the show. Welcome back. One of the big stories this week was the issue of the Consolidated Bank, Ghana Limited. The Bank of Ghana seems to be taking serious actions to regulate the banking industry, and so today we're going to be looking closely at what that issue is and generally trying to get more information on some of the technicalities that we've heard over the tops of our heads this week. To help us do this, we have Mr. Joe Jackson, who is a financial analyst and one of the best voices I've heard speaking to this issue. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for your kind words.
So we have a new bank. There have been so many discussions around the bank and why the 5 banks have been forced, I believe, to merge. But I know you have some very interesting perspectives of what's going on that you would like to share with us.
Yes. First of all, there's no merger. The banks don't exist. They don't. The banks were so badly run down that the central bank has yanked their license. They are kaput. If you worked for, what do you call it? Any of them, any of the 5 banks the day before, the next day,
It doesn't exist.
it doesn't exist. What has happened is the central bank has set up a completely new bank called the Consolidated Bank, and then said, listen, I don't want depositors to lose their money. So, hey, depositors, you can go back to the same place and collect your money. You can use the ATM, but this now is called Consolidated. I've taken all your money and insured it by putting it into Consolidated Bank. So that's for Unibank, for Royal, for Sovereign, for Construction, for Beige. That's what has happened. In addition, if you you work there, except for the executive, if you work there, go on to work tomorrow because I've appointed somebody else in Consolidated Bank to see to your affairs. This will run until Consolidated Bank now has its own procedures, has its own policies, has its own strategy, has rationalized, and I will come back to the word rationalization, everything, and you're working. So that's all that has happened. The banks don't exist. There's no place for redemption. If you were a shareholder in that bank, insofar as you thought you had any money there, it's gone. In any case, for these banks, one clear thing is that the shareholders' funds either were non-existent or had been completely eroded, and they had eaten into depositors' funds. And because of that, that's why it needs capitalization. The deposit funds are not even there. So the central bank has put new money, billions, 5 point something billion of our money to ensure that if you deposited money in any of these banks, you get your money back.
Right. Mr. Jackson, I would want to find out exactly how different this is from the recent takeover we had. Or is this similar? And with every takeover, would Bank of Ghana have to recapitalize so that people don't lose their, depositors don't lose their monies that have been given to these banks entrusted?
Well, first of all, you've got to realize that this takeover happens when the Bank of Ghana feels that depositors' funds are lost,
Right.
and there's no real plan to replenish. Or it's getting worse, which was the case in this recent one.
Okay.
Once depositors' funds are lost, somebody has to
for
pay for it. In the previous case, it was GCB that paid for it, and that's why it was a takeover. In this case, there was nobody to take it over.
Right.
In fact, everybody was concerned, all the banks were concerned about making sure that they can meet the new hurdle. So there was nobody to take it over. So all what really happened was we had to create a new bank and capitalize that bank in order to move forward.
Mr. Jackson, with talking about all of this, we can't have a discussion without asking the regulator what they were doing.
All this started when a new governor came in place,
Right.
who stood up to be counted and said, I will not allow this to continue.
Okay.
So, first of all, we've got to give this governor some credit. But there's continuity. The regulator does not exist in a vacuum. And we have to ask that how did this situation, how was it allowed to fester for so long? What happened to the regular banking inspection teams that went into these banks and went from the banking supervision division that went into these banks and gave them a clean bill of health?
When we're ailing.
And if they were not given a clean bill of health, why was decisive action not taken earlier? Because you see, what has hurt the banking industry more than anything else is a lack of decisive action.
Right.
And what this governor has to his credit is that difference, that he's taking decisive action. Why were we allowed to, for example, go years without some of the banks ever issuing their, publishing their audited accounts? Why would we even allow SEC to allow that to happen?
Exactly.
So there are a lot of questions that the central bank has to answer for. But beyond the central bank, each of these institutions had auditors. And these auditors were from the top 4 auditing firms.
Right.
How was the audit done? Who passed that audit? Those are questions we must ask.
Yeah.
And they're critical questions. In other jurisdictions, like South Africa, some of these auditing firms have been sued. Because somebody goes, the central bank goes in there to inspect. The auditor goes in there to say, yes, you can keep running. How could such massive, really substantial
Mess.
I don't know what to call it.
One of the issues that has come up is the issue of falsification of documents for licensing. What's all that about?
Well, you see, first of all, it's not so much as we went to the central bank and we
Forged documents.
We forge document. It's not that simple. What happens is, if today I wake up and I say I want to set up a bank, the central bank will say, how much money do you have to trade with? In case you take your depositors' money and you do business, you may lose, you may gain. If you lose, where is the shock absorber? What money do you have to cushion that shock? So you say, I have 100 million. Now what happens is that you're supposed to show your 100 million. What happened in this case was that the 100 million was put there, but it was not their money.
Right.
And the 100 million was either pledged or was taken out as soon as the central bank gave them the license, and all sorts of shenanigans. The term in the industry is sale and lease back. So I sell to you and I rent it back from you, and all sorts of smoke and mirrors were constructed. So to be fair to the central bank, it's not that simple to identify that. Somebody has to go in there and on inspection ask, where is that money?
Right.
Is it pledged? Who has it been given to? Now remember that a lot of the lending that was done was also off book.
Yeah.
So in that case, they actually just plainly simply lied. But still does not absolve the central bank, does not absolve the auditors from the fact that they were too easily deceived by these institutions. Right. I mean, how can we sit here today and hear that one single institution lending to its shareholders, its directors and related parties, an amount of in excess of what, 7 billion? Over $100 billion?
What's the way forward?
Well, the way forward, the central bank, they've issued new guidelines. You're going to see huge changes in the makeup of the banks that are left over. Even if you're local, the rules have changed. And the rules are much stricter as to who can be on the board of a financial institution, who can manage a financial institution, what is required. They're a lot more stricter, and those directives have now come out. In fact, you will see that quietly there's a scrambling around with even the ones that are in good standing to say, can I pass the new hurdle? Do I need to, does the chairman or the chairperson need to go? Does the CEO need to move on? And you're starting to see a little bit more planning into succession, bit more succession planning than ever used to apply, where it was stay there. But you see, bottom line is the central bank was generally cut as a lot more slack than ever. Listen, I sit on the board of a small bank in Nigeria, a small institution in Nigeria. I just got a letter from them saying, Mr. Jackson, you've missed 2 board meetings. If you miss a third, the central bank will ask us to chuck you out. So make sure you're at the next board meeting. What's the difference? The difference is this. Nothing like that happens here.
Right.
Or at least nothing like that used to happen here. And you get instances where people sit on the board and haven't attended the board meeting for 2 years.
So that was certainly change.
Essentially clean up time.
It's clean up time. It's clean up time. And it's a good thing. It's a good thing. This economy will not achieve any of its developmental goals if the financial sector doesn't set up.
It is a very complicated matter, but we're very grateful that you've joined us to break them down today. And I think we can just hope that the Bank of Ghana continues on this path to make the industry stronger, because it has an impact on our economy and all of us, because at the end of the day, our taxpayers' money is also involved in this some way. We'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll go on with the show.
Well, today on Career Woman, as usual, we're celebrating a great woman who broke away from the routine of going to a paid job and setting up her own. Out of some challenges, she's come up with a great product which is selling very well in Ghana. But she wants to get us to know her better and find out where she came from and where she plans to be in a few years' time. We have Ivy Appiah. She's the CEO of Tiwajo Industry Limited, and she's going to be talking to us about what she does. Welcome to Captured by Women, Ivy.
Thank you very much.
So let's start off, because what interests me is the fact that you started off a product, yogurt, and now you've gone on to soaps. How did that transition come about?
Well, the whole process started with, as you said, yogurt making. And it was doing well, not too bad, but there were power issues. You know, yogurt is very perishable. So at a point, we couldn't keep up. So we had to, as a biochemist, and my partner, who is my husband, also being a biochemist, we were able to formulate something new, something that was more stable and could stay. And it was out of the love for formulation that made us come up with this product.
So Doomsaw pushed you into a new business.
Exactly.
Okay.
Right, so it was a challenge for many, but an opportunity for you.
Yeah.
But let's start off, backtrack to you saying you're a biochemist. Did you start off right away working for yourself? You came out of some job. So tell us what the transition was like.
Well, I found myself in the same, after national service, I was working as a pharmaceutical company, and I was a quality control assurance manager, and I worked there for a while after national service. But I realized that naturally, I got fed up with routine work. Okay. I know I always give people space to believe in what they want to do, really. So going there, I realized that I even started making yogurt there, and I was selling to my colleagues. And people were like, wow, this is nice. But at a point, I just not that the job was tiring, but to me, I was fed up of the routine. Nothing challenging. That was my only issue. So that was when I realized that my passion was not for, how do you call it? I really needed to break out of that routine. Right. And then we started this product together.
But the idea of yogurt, was it something you knew how to do before and just picked up, or you had seen someone do it and it was doing well, so you followed?
Okay. I think in school we did a lot of, there was a course called fermentation in biochemistry. Right. And that was the main practical course. And that was what led us. Everybody who comes out of biochemistry, knowing that yogurt making was something we did, that we had a hand feel of it. So looking back, I believe that if we had more practicals, people could come out and diversify, because most of my colleagues came out and the only product they could think of was yogurt making. So I believe that was where it all started.
But that's such a big issue, because when you mentioned the fact that you learned that in school, so I'm thinking that could actually be a solution to a huge problem with graduate unemployment, because you had a skill from school and you were able to immediately make it into a business. Do you think that's something we should be having a conversation around?
It's very, very important, because coming out, I believe that if you had practicals in so many of the theories we did courses like inorganic chemistry, organic chemistry, and if all these things, although we're doing lab works and all that, but not, most of them were not a hands-on like practicals that you could come out and say that I'm a master of this. Yes. So I remember even after that course, from that class, one of my classmates, we came out from school, from the classroom, we just said, let's get some milk powder and start doing something. Then I saw that he had the same passion like me. I was so happy. We even had a name. We called it Iventogot. It was so funny, but that was my first business on campus. And we bought the milk, we practiced, and that day when we had the yogurt, it was like
a eureka moment.
So it was like, I realized that was my passion. I really wanted to do this or that, and I knew I was, even from school, secondary school time, when I come home during vacation, I can come, when I come, I want to try new things I've been taught. I remember somebody taught me how to do fan ice. That person gave me a very funny formula. But when I came, I tried. The whole family ran.
You use them as guinea pigs.
So I realized that I just love to try things and new things and see how it goes. And so that's me.
But how did we get here to the soap making? What did you think Ghanaians needed for you to get into that industry?
Okay, I think the whole idea was like natural products. Yogurt was all natural. We're using cow milk at a point, and I think so getting into cosmetics, we didn't want to go too far from natural. And the only thing that came to mind was black soap, which was the shea butter, the black soaps we had. What can we do? And at that time, I think Village Fresh was very popular, and that was a black soap in paste. But people wanted shower gels for convenience. So, I mean, it was like out of a general knowledge and what can we do with natural things. So just try and error here and there. I remember the first 20 bottles we did, we shared it amongst our friends and said, come back with feedback. But they became our main customers. People were like, wow, I just love the way it's like, people were tired of the slippery nature of the foreign soaps, because here we don't really shower, we bath and want to wash our foam off. So what this soap came to do was to help solve that issue. So even if you have even 2 pails of water, you can actually rinse yourself and you don't feel that slippery thing. So that was really what we came out to solve.
So your expertise or your training as a biochemist helped your natural entrepreneurial ability to blossom.
Exactly. Combination.
Now, I'm very interested in the how you stopped work and went into business, because a lot of people who want to go entrepreneurial struggle with the thoughts of what happens if I start and I fail. What will I go back to? How was it like for you?
Well, I believe strongly that we all need a mentor or somebody to push us. For me, I was just a formulator. I loved doing what I knew how to do, but my husband, also being a biochemist, he was coming from a different angle. He loved to take things out and make it happen. Right. So at every point, you need a partner or you need a mentor, somebody who can push you, or else the fear. I remember the first day we did yogurt, and we're not even married. He told me, go and try. Have you tried this hotel? I said, I'll go tomorrow.
Every day tomorrow.
Every day is tomorrow. I remember my brothers will come and, oh, if you are not taking it, let's eat for you. Then they'll eat the first batch, second batch.
Exactly.
And I remember I took a book and said, you owe me 20 Ghana. I know I'll take it. So I started making lists, and they started buying. Okay. But every day you call, have you taken it out to show it to them? I said, tomorrow. So one day he had to come over. I said, let's go. So everybody needs that kind of person. Yeah.
Right. But you mentioned something very interesting about sharing it amongst your friends and then they becoming your customers eventually. Isn't that a challenge for, you know, people who produce products? Because even getting the person to try, because I, for one, would not have been someone to try until it's tested and proven. Then I would come, you know, and buy. So is there a challenge in that aspect as well?
Well, for me, it wasn't.
Okay.
Maybe I was looking at people who trusted me. So maybe that was how it all got there. I had a roommate, I always mention her, that even when I tried the yogurt I went to go, she would eat it and say, wow, everything I do is wow.
Wow.
So she was my first customer. I called her, I've done this. I don't know, you need some people like that.
Yes, your cheerleaders.
Exactly, yeah. So I knew the people
who took your yogurt and
were running. But anyway, tell us how much you started off with, because startup capital is always a problem as well.
Wow, that's it's good you mentioned it, because I always want to talk about it. I remember during the national service, I was using every month the pay or that money that was given to go in and out of transportation. So the last pay that I had, which was when we were finishing the national service, it was 80 cedis. Wow. And I remember I just asked myself, what can I do? All this while I should have started thinking about how I was going to buy things small. Then I said, no, I have to start. I remember I bought the first bag of milk powder for the yogurt for 70 Ghana.
So you're left with only 10?
10 Ghana to manage with. So I told myself, my mom has an ice chest. We needed an ice chest. Okay. She has a table, she has a chair. She has this, and you know, sometimes when you start, people come in to help. There was this guy who had finished Kumasi Poly in art and those kind of things. She told me, oh, I can do a label or a banner and write, yogurt is sold here for you. Then my childhood friend came to visit. He said, oh, you go on with your formulation. I'll sit there and serve people for you. So all of a sudden, I had people who were in to help. So I believe that it wasn't about the money. It was about what I really wanted to do with what I had at that time.
Finally, to walk us through what you have there, what you do.
All right. So right now we do natural soap. The brand name is Paradox. And we started with the shower gel. We moved into the paste. Then we moved into the tablet. So it's like the shower gel is our main thing when we started. But out of customers coming in to require that they need this in this form and all that, we started going into other things. And the shower gel, we did it with the herbs that I did a project on herbs when I was in the first year. And then the herbs that we worked on, they realized they had antibacterial properties. So when I came out, I wanted to combine everything I knew. Because that's all I had. Right. Yes, so I just thought about how those herbs were helpful in treating fungal infections and all that. So I just said, let me mix it with soap and everything I do so that it has at least some healthy look for people. So that's what we did. So every herb we use, it has antibacterial properties. So we do them in 7 different types. We have the lemon, the cocoa, the aloe vera, the fruit mix, the noni, moringa, honey. So we do a research into the things in those things that can those herbs that can help. So that's what we do.
Okay, so
So
this
the-
one has noni in it.
Yes.
Just tell us very quickly,
Yes.
what's the benefit of? So it's noni, and it says it controls acne marks for all skin types.
Yes. Generally, most of these herbs have antibacterial, as I said, but the different ones have the specific uses. So we just do extraction from the herbs because that's what we worked on during school, and then they also hydrate the skin and all that. So anytime you add the extract, it gives you an extra work on the skin that helps you to have a
Okay.
So where can we get some if we're looking for some to purchase?
Well, we have them in all Melcom shops.
Okay.
And then all ShopRite branches. We have them at Game. We have them in all Ghana-made shops. And also we have them in, we have distributors all over the regions who we can call on when you need some anyway.
Very well. We'd like to say thank you to you, Ivy Apia, CEO of Tiwajo Industry Limited, for telling us what you do and how far you've come. I think your story is a very inspiring one, and it will encourage some young people out there to go out and create something with a little skill they have. Nothing is too small. Just make up your mind to start, and I'm sure you start and end big. On that note, we'll take a break. We'll be right back after this.
Well, up next is our lifestyle segment. This is where you want to pick up tips for life and how to stay funky and happy and well. Stay tuned.
Hello there, I'm Solins Rose Quarte. Welcome to the lifestyle segment on Captured by Women. Today we're talking about one of the most important parts of the human body. We're talking about the spine. And we're not just talking about the spine, we're talking about the spine and children. And we are at Nova Wellness Center, where we'll be speaking with Dr. Na Ashile Dodo. She is the CEO and a chiropractor. She'll be talking to us about how important it is to check your child's spine as early as possible. Welcome on the show, Doctor.
Thank you for having me, Solis.
Okay, now let's talk about, when I came in, I saw this poster about it's never too early to, check your child's spine. What does that imply?
So just like it says, it's never too early. I have two daughters. One was first adjusted when she was about a week old and the other about 2 weeks. So I strongly recommend it because sometimes even through the birthing process, it can be traumatic for not only mom, but for newborn child as well. And sometimes some spinal injuries happen. You give birth and the child cannot bend their neck one way or the other. Sometimes they don't come head first, and some injuries happen. When these injuries are noticed early, a lot of the times they can be fixed. But the difficulty is when it's not noticed early and then a child grows up with it, and then maybe at age 19, 20, they start to have problems. Sometimes it's too late. So yes, I strongly recommend it. Even if the child is fine, nothing happened at birth. As the child is growing, they're crawling, siblings are pushing them down, they fall. All these things, again, not all the time, but can tend to bring up spinal problems. And that's why we want to check them out early so that if there's a problem, it can be fixed.
Now, first of all, do you think that as a people we take that aspect very seriously? The spine of a child, parents looking out. We might look out for maybe the child washing her hands or, not hurting herself when she's playing. But that aspect, is it something that is readily on our minds?
It's not, unfortunately. I can tell you for a fact that almost every day I have a parent bring in a child and they'll say, oh, I noticed that their shoulders were not even, or since his childhood he always complains of back pain, but I thought it would go away, or I didn't think it was anything serious. So we don't look out for those signs, unfortunately. And one common saying is, oh, unyinya ebeko and things like that. So unfortunately, some children never get these things corrected and they grow up, and it's when they start work or they go to college and things like that, then it becomes a big problem. And if you are not lucky, it may be too late.
Okay, now let's talk about some of the signs that parents should look out for in their children.
So first of all, if the child is complaining about anything, it may be headache, it may be back pain. You may have a child who's always complaining about back pain. You may have a child who has weakness in either the arm or the leg, and you realize that they tell you, oh, I can't carry something heavy with his hand. It may be somebody who has numbness. So if a child continues to complain about anything, that is a sign that there could be something wrong. Don't just give this child some paracetamol or some painkiller to kill the pain. No, you definitely want to have it checked, because it's very possible that that is as a result of something going in that is causing that problem. The other thing you should look out for are any imbalances. The shoulders, for instance. Sometimes you may realize that one shoulder is higher than the other shoulder, or you may realize that the child has what we call a hump in their back. So meaning that there's one shoulder that's popping out more. All these are signs. We have something we call scoliosis. That is when, if this is the child's spine, scoliosis means that the entire spine is twisted one way or the other. So you may see it visibly if you pay attention. You may realize that the spine is crooked when you're looking at the child straight on. Or for girls, the females, you realize that one side of their strap is always falling. If they're wearing a skirt, you realize that one hip looks higher than the other. All these are signs that there could be some spinal problems, and we recommend that as soon as it is possible, you have your child checked.
Okay. Now, what are some of the things that our parents might do, or we as children might have been exposed to, that might lead to some of these things?
Great. So first of all, falls, accidents. So if your child has had a very big fall, maybe from a flight or two of stairs, for instance, maybe they fell from a bank bed, they were in a motor vehicle accident, again, you need to have them checked. Even if they are not experiencing pain, and this is also for adults, you need to be checked out. That's number one. Number two, heavy school bags is also another one. So we live in a country where a lot of schools have limited resources, so children have to carry all their books to school and back. So you see some of these kids and their bags look so heavy, it's literally weighing the child down. And you have to maybe walk a distance to go get transportation and these things. That's too much stress on the back. So you really want to look out and see if your child is struggling to carry their school bag. If it's too heavy, then you as a parent, it's time to do something about it. And then their posture. Again, we're supposed to sit up straight, but you go to classrooms and you see kids with their heads on their tables, sleeping and writing. Unfortunately, if you go to some of these schools, you even see kids sleeping on the floor and writing. You see all sorts of things, and all these things can have an adverse effect on the spine of the little child.
Okay, so what is the way forward? What can we do exactly?
So as parents, I think it's important that we listen to our children. And also another thing, let's not hit our kids on the back. Sometimes it may be a shoe, it may be a belt, whatever you find. Putting all that pressure on that child's spine again doesn't help. So let's listen to our children. If they have any complaints, let's be observant, and let's not just ignore some of these signs. If there's a problem, please take them to the nearest physician and have them checked. If it's a spinal problem, I strongly recommend that you bring them here to Nova Wellness Center. We have specialized doctors who are trained to analyze and detect any spinal issues that could be worrying your child.
I've been spending time with Dr. Na Ashele Dodo. She is the CEO of Nova Wellness Center, a chiropractic center. And we've been talking about children and their spine, and particularly chiropractic care. I am Solace Rose Quarty. Thank you for watching.
Well, this week has been very interesting, riddled with a lot of issues, but we try to gain an understanding into their merry deal and the fact that we have laid it to rest for now. We will pick it up again when Parliament reconvenes in October, just to be able to find out and make sure that Ghana gets the best deal and we're not shortchanged for value for money. Then we also spoke about the NDC matters and the fact that some 94 MPs are rallying behind the former president, John Mahama, as he goes in to be flag bearer for the NDC, and also the matters arising. Then we also had interesting lifestyle discussions and many more.
And then we had Mr. Joe Jackson, who came to help us explain some of the critical issues around the formation of the Consolidated Bank and what's going on in the banking industry. I think most importantly is the impact that this has on the industry and on us, all of us, and the fact that the Bank of Ghana is trying to ensure that the system is regulated and we have a better economy.
And I'm sure people will be more vigilant which bank they go to. But also we had Ivy joining us, Mrs. Ivy up here. She's the CEO of Tiwajo Industry Limited, and she walked us through her yogurt company and now her soap company, which is doing very well. You'd want to try her soap. At least one thing she mentioned that I was interested in is that slippery feel.
Yes.
Many of us don't like it because Ghanaians like to bath. We don't shower. That's the thing. But anyway, so you want to get a product of hers and find out how it feels to have a Ghanaian product that suits your body just well. And then of course we chat more, but we have exciting things for you as always. Next week you make time to join us. We'd like to say thank you to GTP for sponsoring us with this cloth, and also the lady who made our beautiful clothing,
CJ Clothing.
Yeah, we'd like to say a very big thank you. And of course Yum Vita, a delicious way to grow. If you haven't tasted it, you really are missing. So walk out there and buy a sachet, taste it, and buy some for the whole family as well. We'll come same time next week. It will be Captured by Women right at this time, so you don't want to miss it for anything in the world. Have a good and blessed weekend. See you.
Captured by Women is brought to you by Yum Vita, a delicious way to grow.